John, thank you for having me here tonight, and I'm very happy to see all you good people here. First, let me say, John made two statements I don't agree with. One, in my opinion, I was at the right place at the right time in both situations. Now, having said that, very brief history. I was born in Limerick City, 1932, in the era of Angela's Ashes. You know Angela's Ashes tells a graphic story, but the abject poverty of Limerick City. I was born not into the abject poverty, but a certain poverty. My father was a former I.R.A. man from the time of the Revolution, and that didn't go down very well with a lot of people. However, I was born in a one-room flat. 5 children were born there. So I knew and lived the poverty of Angela's Ashes. And I have to say to you, many people said, oh, that was terrible. But no, it wasn't. It told the truth, the whole truth. Nothing but the truth. And what I deplored about the people who deplored the lies about the prosperity of the time, because it defames those wonderful mothers and fathers we had. The very poor people who gave us, who had nothing, but gave us everything. They gave us faith, love, and other. Now, I'll jump forward for a moment. From the poverty of the Lower East Side, when I first arrived in New York, I should have mentioned, by the way, I entered religious life at the age of about a little over 14, 15. I knew little or nothing about the outside world. Up to 5 years in a monastic situation, behind big walls. We didn't hardly know what a woman was. So, having gone from such a sheltered environment, but in an environment where I was able to read and study and meet great people. And then, in 1957, I came to New York. I lived in the Irish community for a little while. I couldn't wait to get away from it. Partly because we were a very closed community. Wonderful people, and we seem to think we're the only people that got made. Well, I wanted to let them know we certainly are not. There's so many other people. And then, after living a little while with the Irish Bronx, I moved down to the Lower East Side of Manhattan. I lived with different families, moving like a nomad from place to place. It was predominantly in Avenue D and 9th Street. It was mostly Hispanic, some people from the South, mostly very, very poor people who were migrants from different parts of the world or the country. Among them also were the Irish, the Poles, some Germans, a large Jewish community of very poor people. I was absolutely shocked and appalled at what I saw. I couldn't believe I was in so-called land of the free. So, I met a woman by the name of Dorothy Day. You may have heard of her. She founded a Catholic Worker. And she introduced me to many more people hoping to work among the poor. Now I want to say something to you. Much has been said about me, much has been written, but the most important thing I want to share with you is I did absolutely nothing on my own. First of all, I had a great faith in the power of God. And I believed if I would start a project, it was His name, and it was His problem, not mine, to pay the bills. And I let Him do it. And He did it very well. In my entire career, I never wrote a letter, begged from anybody, wrote a formula, never a proposal for money. I said, Lord, if you want this work to be done, you are going to provide. And He did in the most amazing way. We started with a little storefront at 713 East 9th Street. Now, in the beginning, there was no special plan. I felt coming as a poor boy from Ireland and meeting a kaleidoscopic group of poor children of different nationalities, many Hispanic, many black. I was studying at the time at St. John's University in Brooklyn, and I said to my brothers, here we are studying to be lawyers or teachers. We're a reservoir of knowledge that's stagnant if we don't irrigate the people, especially the children around us. And from there, a very true story that happened. I was at the corner of Skimmerhart Street in Brooklyn at a red light, and I saw a young boy climbing up the ladder. I'm sorry, up the lamppost. And I stopped and said, youngster, why are you doing that? That's dangerous. He said, mind your business. I said, well, you're my business. You're one of God's children. And I thought he was going off to damage the light. He told me a few days ago. I still know him, by the way. He was going off to get a pair of sneakers from over the top of the wire. He couldn't afford sneakers. Now, there's so much I could talk about, but I tell you what the Lower East Side was. Early, just a group of very, very poor people. Little by little, drugs set in. Gangs started up. And because I was young and naive, almost dumb, you could say, I hung out with most of the gang kids. Infiltrated most of them. Loved living among them. Now, the most strange thing about my life and work is, it's a mystery and a miracle. More of a miracle than a mystery, because the reason we succeeded without ever asking anything from anybody was a solid and profound belief in the power of God to provide for us. Another thing I learned, which was very, very valuable to me, when I looked for volunteers, I had a motto. Now, you may have known the motto. You'll ever hear of the operetta, and you get your gun, I think it was called. It used to say, anything you can do, I can do better. But I found another way around it. I said, anything I can do, you can do better. I want a plumber, you're a better plumber than I. I want a painter, I want a teacher, I want a psychiatrist, I want a priest, I want a judge if I can get one. And recognizing the value of each person, knowing that the divine spark of goodness that God put in every one of us can never be eradicated, no matter what the crime, no matter what we do in life. That spark is there. So from that very early day, I began with a group of young men, all of us in college, doing what we felt we could do best. Most of us are children of immigrants, and try to give back to local young people without being judgmental. And out of that grew an organization called Bonitas Youth Services. Bonitas is the Latin word for goodness, and that goodness we sought in every child, every man and woman we met, involved ourselves deeply with the families. Now, there's so much to tell, by the way, after showing it here. Fast forwarding. We started off with our storefront, and by a total miracle ended up in a building. A great Jewish friend of mine told me one time, never buy with cash, buy with paper. And we did that. And we ultimately, with volunteer people, founded a house in 9th Street called the Bonitas House, still there. Now, in my life, there have been different episodes, as you may imagine. There was the times when I was with the gangs in Lower Manhattan, working with the underground squad of the narcotics squad and so forth. There were many times when we walked in the valley of darkness. Now then, I must mention to you the most important part that John would like me to speak about. Yes, in 1983, I went to Ireland with my brother we were going for our father's birthday. Little did I know that John, who was an international shipper, was shipping all kinds of things to Ireland, you know, quilts, lights, bicycles or whatever. And among the lights, there were also other lights called arm lights. A lot of them. I, believe me, as I say to you, I had no clue what was going on. And I was in my brother's area when the army came in, the Special Branch Police. They were expecting a big shipment of arms, the 2 million arms, including among them, by the way, SAMs, you know what SAM is, Special Air Military Men, surface-to-air missiles. Well, I haven't time to tell you the story for that, but however,
get the next robbery.
Then we get there right now. So then, I was arrested with my brother. And the reason being, they mistook me for another man. His name was Paddy. His nickname was El Padre. And he was educated in the same county I was. He was the famous Pimpernel of Ireland, the underground man for the I.R.A. Okay. Next, I'll go forward now. I go back to America. I spent a little time there. I was acquitted, and I'll never forget what the judge said. He said, look, Father Moloney, you picked the wrong man. You should have never arrested him to begin with. Now fast forward to be the wrong, but the reason I say it was in the right place, the right time, it put me in among the greatest men that lived in Ireland, the Irish Provisional Army. Now then, back on up to 1993, there was a great robbery of the Brinks Depot, upstate New York. It was on January 5th, 1993. I never heard of the robbery, knew nothing about the robbery. But I had befriended, as I have done for many years, many rebels, many people in the run. And fast on that was, he asked me for a place to stay for his family, because they couldn't stay with him. He was the main robber, but however, he was not charged with the robbery. In the house I lent him, $2 million was found. I knew nothing absolutely about it. Why do I say it was the right place at the right place at the right time? I ended up being convicted of possession of money, of which I knew nothing about, and spent 4 years in a federal prison, a year under house arrest, and thereafter. And there I had the pleasure of meeting some of the most difficult, some innocent, some guilty. Many in America are not guilty, but they're not guilty as charged, but they cop a plea, and many in the system, everybody from mafiosa to people just peddling marijuana. To me, it was a great privilege. Because why? The Lord told us we should visit the sick, we should take care of the needy, and visit the prisoners. Well, I did that for years and years, in many places. However, I said, oh, Lord, you know, maybe that's what you want. Not just to visit, but put me right among them. It was the greatest privilege of my life. I'm running out of time, I think, so I'll say it quickly. They say, like, I was a convicted felon, but I want to emphasize to you. The Archbishop of New York, my own bishop, and the canon lawyer said, Father Moloney, you've been among all kinds of people all your life. You may not testify in your own behalf, even if that means you have to go to jail. I went to jail. Now, there's an old expression that says, stone walls do not a prison make, they're iron bars, a cage. I had a wonderful time working among prisoners there, and most important of all, when a priest commits a crime, a felony, he's stripped of his collar, he's no longer allowed to function. I never lost my functions. I was allowed to be a priest in the prison system. I ministered to people, even people like somebody brother would die, and they didn't want to go home in chains. I would do masses from them there. It was the greatest period of my life. Now, as to the money, by the way, $2 million was found in that apartment. Again, I knew the money was there because I found it one day when I went in. I gave the guy, guy who put it there, a money counter to count it. They never found the $5 million. Now, the only one, the one who committed the robbery, Sam Miller, he says he didn't know where it is. I'm never telling Andrew if I do or I don't, but actually, no, I don't. I've never had anything to do with that money. So what to say to you is, I'm here, a mystery, and the miracle, but the great miracle of all is, God's goodness, and remember your goodness. See the goodness in everybody else and pass it on to other people. God love you.